It was a Tuesday, October 12th, 1976. In Havenwood, Oregon, the day began like any other, mundane, predictable. For Eleanor Carter, it became a day of endless waiting. Her daughter Emily, 17, was late. First by minutes, then hours. The casserole cooled, the sun vanished behind the cascades, panic crept in. Then, the phone rang. Eleanor grabbed the receiver, hope and dread tangled in her chest. "Emily?" she whispered. But the voice was wrong. Emily's, but distant, warped, as if underwater. "Mom," the voice breathed. "I'm lost." Then, leaves rustling, a twig snapping, a chilling hum. The line went dead. Emily was gone. Hundreds searched Whisper Pines, calling her name until their voices broke. No trace. The only clue, that impossible call. The sheriff's office tried to trace it. There was no record, no connection. A ghost on the line. For Eleanor, the silence was worse than the static, but it didn't last. A week later, the phone rang again. And again, the next month, always at night. Always Emily's voice, distorted and far away. Sometimes just a word. Cold. Help. Sometimes only the wind through pines. Eleanor became a prisoner of the phone, waiting for the next echo from the forest. A call from nowhere. The legend of Emily's disappearance grew, but the calls never stopped. The town whispered about the haunted line, the mother who waited, and the girl lost somewhere between worlds. The phone became a lifeline and a curse, a reminder that some connections refuse to die. In Havenwood, everyone knew. If the phone rang at night, you listened. Because sometimes the forest called back, and sometimes it was someone you loved. The story of Eleanor and Emily became the first chapter in a mystery that would haunt Whisper Pines for generations. The calls from nowhere were just beginning, and the forest was listening, always. Whisper Pines. The name itself is a warning. To outsiders, it's a postcard of Pacific Northwest beauty. To locals, it's a place that remembers. The forest listens. Stories pass in hushed tones, phones ringing with no signal, voices in the wind. Cell service vanishes in the dense woods, yet the calls persist. Campers jolted awake by a shrill ring from a dead phone. Hikers receiving voicemails from numbers that don't exist. The calls are never clear, just fragments, echoes, a sob, a name, the sound of running. For decades, these tales were dismissed as campfire stories, but too many people, too many details made them impossible to ignore. The forest conspires in the mystery. The air is heavy, the silence pressing. Sounds don't travel right. A shout is swallowed. A whisper seems close. Locals warn don't call out for the lost too loudly. You never know what might answer. Whisper Pines bends the rules of physics and communication. It's a place where the silence listens and sometimes it calls you. The stories are warnings, reminders that some places are not meant to be understood. In Whisper Pines, the normal rules break, and the forest remembers every call, every echo, every loss, and it never forgets. 1982. Mark Jensen, scout leader, led his troop into Whisper Pines for a weekend of camping. The first night was perfect. Laughter, marshmallows, ghost stories. The second night, fog rolled in. The boys grew quiet, huddled by the fire. Timmy, a quiet boy, tugged Mark's sleeve. His walkie-talkie, a forbidden toy, was making noise. Mark was about to scold him. Then he heard it, a child's voice crying through the static. The other walkie was miles away, batteries removed. This was impossible. Mark pressed the talk button. "Hello? Who is this?" The crying stopped, static. Then a lullaby, off-key and sad, hummed through the speaker. The humming grew louder, closer. The boys stared, pale and silent. Mark, driven by fear, threw the walkie into the fire. It melted. The humming stopped. Silence fell, heavier than the fog. They packed up in a panic, fleeing the woods in the dark. Mark never led another trip into Whisper Pines. He told the sheriff it felt like they were being hunted, not by an animal, but by a sound. A sorrow that seeped into the air. The story spread. The forest could use your own voice, your own memories, against you. The boys never forgot that night. Neither did Mark. Whisper Pines kept their fear, and the forest listened. The legend grew. The calls continued, and the woods waited for the next voice, the next echo, the next story. The legend of Whisper Pines adapted to the digital age. In 2018, Sarah Voss, a college student, hiked alone, chasing the perfect photo. Her phone's battery drained rapidly, then died. Lost, she panicked. Suddenly, her dead phone lit up. An incoming call, no number, just a green button. She answered. A raspy voice. Don't follow the path. The creek, follow the water down. The phone died again. Sarah followed the creek and was found by a ranger at dawn. In 2023, TikTok ghost hunters live-streamed from Whisper Pines. Hours of nothing. Then a phone with no signal rang. It was a call from a phone that was off. They answered. A low hum, then a chorus of whispers. You're in our place. Get out. The video went viral. Fear was real. Skeptics argued, but the legend grew. The forest used new tools to haunt a new generation. No matter the technology, the calls persisted. The silence of Whisper Pines was never empty. It was waiting. For a ring. For a voice. For someone to listen. The ghosts had learned to use our devices, and the forest was never silent. As stories spread, science took notice. Dr. Lena Park, neuroscientist, proposed a theory acoustic haunting. Whisper Pines sits on pure quartz bedrock, piezoelectric, generating electric charge under stress. Park suggested tectonic pressure and wind create infrasound, low frequencies that cause anxiety, dread, even hallucinations. The forest wasn't haunted, it was vibrating at a frequency that made people feel haunted. But this didn't explain the calls, the messages, the voices. Park speculated, could the quartz, combined with electromagnetic fields, interact with electronics? Could the forest record and replay emotional energy? Her ideas were fringe, but she persisted. Her team recorded strange energy spikes, unexplained hums. No clear answers, just more questions. The forest wasn't speaking, but maybe its bones were screaming. Science couldn't explain everything, and the calls continued. For Sheriff Frank Miller, Whisper Pines was a wound. He'd searched for Emily Carter in 1976, promised her mother he'd find her. Years passed. Emily's case haunted him. In 1994, hikers found Emily's locket in a creek bed. The case reopened, but led nowhere. Then, ground-penetrating radar found a strange signal beneath the earth. They dug up a plastic bag. Inside, a 1970s telephone, cord severed, perfectly preserved. Alone, Frank connected a battery to the phone. For a moment, it gave a soft dial tone, then silence. He never told anyone. It was a moment between him, a ghost, and a promise he couldn't keep. The phone became evidence, but also a message. The forest kept its secrets, and the calls never stopped. Frank carried the weight of that promise. The mystery endured, the forest remembered, and somewhere a connection lingered. A call waiting to be answered, a voice lost in the static, a father's promise echoing in the pines forever. July 4th, 2025. In Havenwood, the calls from Whisper Pines persist. Now they come to smartphones. Unknown caller, voicemails of wind, a whisper, a footstep. Families of the lost cope in their own ways. Some wait by the phone, others block all unknown numbers. How do you mourn someone who might still be calling? A support group, The Echoes, meets monthly, sharing stories of impossible messages, a son's favorite song, a single word, soon. These are not just stories. They are data points, fragments from a place that shouldn't communicate. The calls are logged, analyzed, but no pattern emerges. Only the forest, the silence, and the random, terrifying ring. A call from the past, still waiting for someone to answer. The grief is ongoing, the mystery unsolved, the forest's reach unbroken, and the phone always ready to ring. Would you answer? Maybe we're asking the wrong questions. We search for answers in science, folklore, and technology. But what if the real explanation is emotional? Whisper Pines has witnessed fear, loss, love, a desperate yearning for connection. What if emotion leaves a mark? Not just on memory, but on the land. Grief can feel like a place, a room with no doors, a landscape you're lost in. In Whisper Pines, maybe that metaphor is real. The forest absorbs sorrow, terror, love, becoming a spirit of place, not of ghosts, but of emotion. Perhaps the forest isn't haunted by the dead, but by the act of dying. The final desperate thought, I need to call home. The forest replays these echoes, not as ghost stories, but as love stories. Grief is not just a feeling, it's a place. And some are still lost there trying to call home. The calls are echoes of love, refusing to fade. The legend endures. The debate continues. Science, folklore, grief, or something else. Whisper Pines is not a puzzle to solve, but a question to live with. It reminds us that some places remain wild, beyond our understanding. Our devices fail, and in the silence, something older speaks. It uses our tools, turning connection into dread. For families, it's about hope and memory. Is that static a goodbye, or a trick of the wind? To believe is pain. To disbelieve is to sever the last thread. We are left to wonder, to shiver at the tree line. If your phone rang from a place of silence and sorrow, would you answer? Of course you would. You'd listen, hoping for a voice. You'd wait for the call you can't afford to miss.